Bienvenidos and welcome to The Big Hit, IUP-TV's only sports talk show where we talk all sports all the time. I'm your host, Jake Slobodnik, for tonight's episode, and we got a great lineup for you. First coming at you, we got some NHL action with Jake Taylor and Mike Costa. Then we got IUP Football with me and Stephen Langdon Jr. We got Jake Taylor and Nick Dudowski giving us the comedic skit, The Weekday Roundup. I'm Jake Slobodnik, and IUP-TV's The Big Hit starts now. Wow, better throw than Lenny Williams this past weekend. Wow. Welcome back to The Big Hit, joined by Jake Taylor and Mike Costa for what we call the NHL segment. Guys, James Van Riemsdyk is dealing with a knee injury and is expected to miss the next 5 to 6 weeks. What do you guys think this means for the Flyers and their outlook for the Metropolitan Division?
Newsflash. The Flyers suck. All right, so that's a newsflash there that my friend is telling me.
Wow.
So I'm just going to go based strictly off of that. So that was been sent by the president, like he's been sending out those weird things about those alerts to your phone. So the Flyers suck.
Yeah.
They haven't won a Stanley Cup in 50-something years. They don't know how to get it done, from management to coaching, the personnel. They don't know. The fans don't know what it's like to win. They don't know what it's like to win. James Van Riemsdyk was a great acquisition. They thought he was going to come do something special. Well, guess what? He's out. He's out for a significant amount of time. It's good in the NHL. You want to get to an early start. The Flyers are used to that. They're a very streaky, inconsistent team. They like to get on these long runs where they're very good for a short or a decent amount of time because it gets them into the playoffs like last year. Obviously, you're not going to get them far.
But that's it. They just get in the playoffs.
They just get to the playoffs. I mean, that's all this team's good for. The teams just get good enough to get to the playoffs. They don't have the depth. They don't have the goaltending. They don't have certainly don't have the coach. If they don't fire the coach, Dave Axtell right now, I don't know. I honestly don't know what they're doing. I don't know how they think he's a serviceable coach in the NHL. You might as well just put him down here and play in the DAC hockey or something.
Go to the beer league.
Yeah, go to the beer league, coach some inline hockey. I'm not really sure what this jabroni thinks he's doing over there in Philadelphia. But regardless, James Van Riemsdyk, huge player. It's going to be detrimental to the Flyers.
I think so, yeah.
Success.
I think it's for sure. I think it was all downhill after Gritty, after they made Gritty their mascot.
Yeah.
I mean, that's his bar set. I mean, everything's downhill from there. JVR, 20 goal scorer, pretty good. I think it was a great acquisition. Claude Giroux was the only guy that had over 100 points. I mean, the Pens had like 3 guys that had 90, so their offense wasn't great. I think the offense was like bottom half in the year, so they got nothing going on. And then they get JVR, and now he's out for a while. They've got games against the Knights, twice against the Sharks with Erik Karlsson, stud.
Tonight, yeah.
And then Tampa Bay and Toronto and Pitt. So in the first, month and a half, 2 months, the 5 weeks he's out, it's going to be rough, and they're going to fall to the bottom of that leaderboard. And I think the Flyers are already done. I'm putting the nail in the coffin. Flyers are already done. Their season's over.
Like you just said, I didn't even realize how hard the early season schedule is. These teams are, of course, it's a long, long season, and even a longer postseason. So the championship, the Stanley Cup, is not won in the first month.
That's right.
You can almost lose it. I'm sure you can make the playoffs, but if you don't want to get too far down, especially in the Metropolitan Division, when you have Columbus, you have Pittsburgh, you have Washington, who are still going to be the powerhouses, who have the depth that especially Washington and Pittsburgh. Washington wins it out every single year.
Well, guys, let's stay on that subject of injuries in that division. You see the Blue Jackets, their forward Brandon Dubinsky, he's also expected to miss significant time with an injury, 4 to 6 weeks. He actually has an oblique injury. Where do you see Columbus going from here? I know you said they look strong, but how does this injury impact them?
I think it impacts them more or less in the locker room. I think it impacts them in the locker room more. I think Brandon Dubinsky's he's almost a leader of the team. He likes to put the team. He's energy. He brings energy to the Columbus bench. He's gritty. He gets dirty. He takes some cheap shots now and then, but it's hockey. That's why we love to watch it. He can score when he needs to. Get some stupid penalties, but other than that, I don't really think he's too costly. I think the team is decent depth-wise. I think still their best player is Panarin, hands down. He's electrifying. Yep. That man can do whatever he wants with the puck on the stick. And I think Dubinsky, I think it's just a bigger loss in the locker room rather than on the ice.
Yeah, for sure. I think the leadership, you lose that. The rest of the season, I don't know how it's going to look for at least the next 5 or 6 weeks. Sorry. And then 14 in points. So he doesn't put up a whole lot of points. They got a lot of guys up there. They still got Nick Foligno, who's an older guy, still a leader. But when you lose Brandon Dubinsky, that's going to be pretty rough. Yeah. When you have Artemi Panarin, Sergei Bobrovsky,
Seth Jones on defense too.
John Tortorella, who I don't like, but he's a decent coach. I think they got a lot of depth, and I think they'll be fine. But it's going to be. It's not. I don't think the offense is going to suffer. Is what I'm getting at. Yeah. Yeah. So.
Well, let's take one team, that you don't think the offense is going to disappoint. Let's take another team that kind of had a disappointing season last year, the Chicago Blackhawks. Sheesh. After a disappointing season with the roster that has kept its Stanley Cup core, the Blackhawks are back on top of the Central Division. Are they back, and can they keep this up?
I don't know if they're back. I think the reason why they're, especially right now in the first week or so of the NHL, the success has stemmed solely from their captain, Jonathan Toews, who had a hat trick the other day, and he keeps up his scoring.
Yeah,
He's playing very well.
People up.
Yeah, and he can't do that. He's not consistent with that. I'm not really sure. The numbers speak for itself. He is in the 20s every single year in scoring. Patrick Kane. Patrick Kane kind of carries the team in scoring. But like we saw, they were the number 1 team in the West, in the entire Western Conference 2 years ago, and got swept first round by the Nashville Predators. I'm not sure what that did because they were terrible.
Sweep is right. Yeah, sweep is bad.
Number 1 team getting swept in the first round, and then all of a sudden you do nothing the next season. I think they're almost rebuilding because these guys. I mean, they won a lot of. They won 3 Stanley Cups in 6 years, but that was a while ago. That was 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And so these guys are getting a little bit older. I mean, the other teams are getting younger, faster, stronger. Especially in the Central. The Central Division is very, very competitive. I mean, you have Minnesota, you have St. Louis, you have Winnipeg. You have teams like Colorado, a young team. Nathan McKinnon carrying that young team up. I think that division is going to be very tough. So I'm not going to cut them out since. For their veteran experience in the 3 Stanley Cups that the core players have won. So obviously that's great to have. I think goaltending's still a little bit shaky. I don't know. Corey Crawford, I don't know how he pulls stuff out like he does. The saves he pulls out are pretty remarkable, something you see in the video game. So Blackhawks, you can never count them out, but I'm not going to count them in.
Yeah, it's just what I've seen in the recent history, like that in the postseason, not doing too much. And I mean, 5-6 years ago, another Pens plug. The Pens went those years with LA and Chicago going back and forth, and the Pens won it again.
Yeah.
So I guess there is a little like silver lining for them, but I think that it could be like a flash in the pan, like I said. And the whole league is getting younger and the whole league is getting faster, and I don't think they can keep up. And Corey Crawford inconsistent. I mean, you can go as far as you can in the regular season. You can get hot, but if you don't have goaltending, they still have a stud defenseman. But last year was looking rough.
Yeah.
And like I said, dude, a sweep against Nashville, and like the sweep is the worst possible thing.
Especially number 1 seed. I guess that really shot their confidence down.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
Exactly. And a sweep does shut your confidence down. We've seen that many cases in different sports. The Pens are 500 in their first 2 games, so 1-1 on the season. It's great, but they allowed 11 goals. We look at the acquisition of Jack Johnson. Do you have any concerns for their defense now that they acquired him, or do you think that just improved them a heck of a lot better?
I think it's a transitional thing. I think Jack will fit in.
Yeah.
He's a really great defenseman. I don't want an offense. We have Chris Letang. Dude doesn't need to score goals. He just needs to be consistent on the ice at the blue line. Just making sure that he's doing really good on defense and doing his thing and blocking shots and not, getting in the passing lanes and stuff like that. So I think Jack Johnson's really good at that, and that's what we need. He's just got to kind of gel with everybody else, and it'll all be good. I don't think it's the first 2 games, like I said, so you can't really say too much. The only thing was in the Habs game that they played. It's just the little pen stuff that they do. Like they were outworked and they were bad changes, and it's almost like beer league stuff. Like you got to correct that stuff, and you're professional, in the NHL.
Yeah.
But I think it'll all work out in the end. I think it'll be good.
Jake, you got a take on this?
Yes, and it's not too hot, surprisingly.
Wow.
I think that. It's like you said, it's the first 2 games. I was surprised that we got beat so bad against the Canadians because they are so bad.
Oh my God! They only have Carey Price.
On paper, their team is bad. So I'm surprised it happened. But if you want to take a positive out of these, the Washington Capitals opened up the year, raised the banner, right? They raised the banner. They shellacked the Boston Bruins 7-0, and then they lost to the Penguins. Yeah. So I mean, a team, and we scored 7 goals. The Penguins scored 7 goals on the Washington Capitals. Braden Holtby, that great defensive core they have there. So. I really think that the Penguins, obviously, we've seen them win Stanley Cups with this same exact group of guys, the same core. I mean, the defense is not as good as it was in 2016. When we won the Cup 2016 with Lovejoy and Trevor Daley. They were huge, huge assets to the team. But we won the Cup without Letang. Letang's coming off a terrible season. He's already looked so much better. He scored the game-winning goal in overtime against Washington. So he's really been working hard. He even admitted that he had a bad year last year. So I think the defense is coming into it. Matt Murray needs to stay healthy is what needs to happen. Matt Murray played bad. He did play pretty poor. He let him some
very lackluster.
Yeah, and he's hurt now. He's out with concussion. So it's good to see if the Penguins can have the young goalies, the backup goalies, come up and stay and do a stable job. The defense just needs to contain. The offense has Phil Kessel, Sidney Crosby.
Offense is good. Offense has always been good.
Solid. Yeah. It's been solid for years.
Yeah. So I'm honestly, if we're scoring 6 goals a game, I'm pretty sure we're going to win because a team with a defense and a solid goalie, Matt Murray plays well when it matters, and so I think
we know he can show up too.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
that guy, he's just got to get it together. And
Well, you know, guys. Oh, sorry.
I was gonna say, if you want to look on the bright side of things for Pens fans, the old cliche is you don't want to peak too early.
Yeah.
You know, so we can do this for the first couple months, and then we're good for the playoffs again.
Well, guys, we talked about all these teams, talked about chances at playoffs. Jake, I know you're famous with hot takes. I want to get both of your takes on this. Stanley Cup final rematch between the Capitals and Golden Knights is set up for October 10th. What are your predictions and any players you guys have that will, step to the occasion in this one?
I think my prediction is they're going to absolutely wipe their rear ends with them, Washington Capitals, and get Vegas Golden Knights like they did in the Cup final, because the Vegas Golden Knights do not have the talent to even go down to the third line like the Washington Capitals did.
Yeah.
Last year, Vegas had, like, when the Penguins won with HBK, like the line HBK, you remember that?
Oh,
yeah. But that was like, it was like they were so captivating. They took over the playoffs, but they still, Sidney Crosby won the Conn Smythe year, and he wasn't even on that line. Vegas had one good line. They had Riley Smith, they had Carlson, and they had, don't let me forget this other guy's name. Jabroni McGee. It is Jabroni. It doesn't matter. He lost. I don't care. I don't know him because he lost. And they're not gonna beat the Washington Capitals because the Washington Capitals are stacked and they're good and they're gonna be good again and they're gonna whoop on them. And that's just bottom line. It's just the bottom line because Stone Cold said so.
I'm gonna go. The only thing I got, being a Pens fan, Marc-Andre Fleury, he's seen Washington a lot and he knows how to stop them. I think Fleury's gonna really show up and have a good game, make a lot of stops. Ovi can sit at the point all he wants, or in that face-off circle in the power play. He can throw whatever he wants on
Jonathan Marshall show.
From Florida. Yeah. All right, there we go. Let the record show. And then, but yeah, so Fleury's gonna show up. I think he's gonna have a really good game. Other than that, though, like we were saying, I mean, Vegas is rostered. Yeah, they're good and everything. They got a lot of speed, but I think Washington's just got this way too much skill and
So we got Hot Take Jake taking the Golden Knights as well as Mike Koss taking the Golden Knights. We'll see how this plans out. I honestly think Golden Knights are going to take it all, so make it 3. We'll be back to the big hit after this.
Students in communications media at Indiana University of Pennsylvania can focus on a variety of areas, including media promotions. Our promotions students learn their skills by working in a hands-on environment, gaining real-world experience. They learn how to use media to promote, produce, and manage events, and how media organizations operate. They create promotional campaigns and help clients pitch their services, products, and events. With excellent classes led by experienced teachers, the Communications Media Department at IUP is perfect for students interested in media promotions.
Welcome back, and thank you for joining us for today's IUP Hawk Seat. I'm Jake Slobonic alongside Stephen Langdon, your commentators for IUP Football. And Steve, one question everyone wants to know is, what is going on with Lenny Williams?
Well, I wish I knew Jake. He has looked poor the last 2 weeks, to say the least. He has 6 interceptions on the season, and 5 have come in within the last 2 weeks. So that's never a good sign. He had a fumble, of course, last week. So 4 turnovers on the game is never going to win a football game. But overall, Lenny Williams last year did have a rough couple games in the middle of the season. And I think that's just what's going on right here. They had the toughest part of their schedule in this short period of time. And I think that once they get out of this tough part of the schedule, then he will go back to his early season form.
You know, you talk about a lot the rough part of the schedule. They lost to California University of Pennsylvania, and then they lost to Slippery Rock last week on homecoming by 3. On homecoming. But, I mean, this was the first 2-game losing streak for IUP in 4 years. Flashback 2014 when they went 6-5 on the season. They actually lost to Slippery Rock and Cal U then as well. But how can they come back in the following weeks and hopefully start some sort of winning streak?
The only thing I could think of is win. Honestly, they haven't done a lot of winning. We expected this team to go into the season, completely dominate every team during the regular season, and then their hard opponents would come right as playoffs happen.
That's a pretty broad answer, win. But like, go a little bit more in depth. What can they do?
Well, first they need to do a lot better on the offensive line. They only had 69 rushing yards as a team last week. Justice Evans only had, I think, he had less than 40 yards. I think 39 yards of rushing. And I know they're missing Samir, but their offense just looks in disarray. And their defense isn't pressuring the quarterback as much as we saw the first couple weeks of the season. Their special teams has been really the bright point of their team. Kayshawn Carter has really been a stud this season as a freshman coming in, and he's really been one of the better points for IUP's football team this year.
Well, you talk about the offensive side of IUP being in disarray right now. However, we are expecting the return of JoJo Gauze very soon. And do you think that'll be the pick-me-up the Crimson Hawks need in order to start their winning ways yet again?
I really do, because JoJo went out a couple weeks ago, and really the offense hasn't been the same since. You saw later on in the game after he was out that the offense just took a dive. Ricky Rogers, he had a fantastic catch for a touchdown last week, but he's really been struggling as far as catching the ball and making big plays. So I think with the addition of JoJo, it takes a lot of pressure off of players like Ricky Rogers and Walls, and I think that he's one of the missing keys to this offense.
We have Samir Bullock out. You mentioned that earlier. He's out at least 2 more weeks. Let's talk expectations from what we want to see from his backups, Chris Temple, Justice Evans, who put on a great receiving game, and even Tyler Balega, 4th-string running back. But we've seen that he's been really good throughout the season.
Yeah, Chris Temple came in. He didn't get a lot of carries early on this season, but he really did a nice job last week of coming in and making some big third-down conversions. Did some great blocking for Lenny Williams on some plays. But overall, Justice Evans, really, he's really the main point of this offense. Only a sophomore this year. He had over 100 receiving yards as well. That was a big part. He had that wonderful catch.
Featured on ESPN's SportsCenter Snapchat story, and coming from a D2 school like IUP, you would never see that out of anyone.
Yeah, it was really, I thought it should have been a top 10 play. Unfortunately, it wasn't, but it was one of the most insane catches I think I've ever seen, and the most insane catch at a live game I've ever seen. But Justice Evans, I think, really is the main point for this offense. I think if he gets the ball running and he can have over 100 rushing yards, they have not had a 100-yard rusher all season long. So I think if they can get that running back to have over 100 yards, even Balega, he's had a solid season coming in at some points. But if you can get these 3 backs running, at least for the next few weeks while Bullock recovers, I think the offense really does improve. It takes a lot of pressure off of Lenny, and it puts a lot of confidence into that offense.
One factor that people often overlook is the special teams. We've seen Dylan Sark get improved over the season. In his first 2 games, he looked a little bad with his kicking, but I think he shook off all that rust. But what about punter Nico Ruiz? We commented during the game about his short kicks and how long he holds the ball before he actually gets the kick off. Could this be a hidden factor for IUP success?
Their special teams has really been a hidden factor, and I think a key to their success this season. But Nico Ruiz, one of the best punters in Division II. He ranks among the top 5 in punting average. We saw a couple of times during the game that he likes to hold on to the ball, but I think that is a strategy because it gets the runners down the field to possibly make a tackle, so you limit the amount of punt return yards by the opponent. You saw in the last game that he held the ball for a long time, but he dropped it in, I think it was the 5-yard line on that play. And I think Nico he's a senior this year, and he's done a fantastic job early on in the season. They had a nice 4th down conversion where he went for 27 yards, I believe.
27-yard on a run on a miscarried ball. It probably wasn't drawn up to plan, but it happened, and they got a 1st down off of it. Can't complain about that. One thing we can't complain, though, is penalties. They give opponents free yards that often lead to easy scoring drives, and it showed in the Slippery Rock game, and I think it even showed in the Cal U game. How can IUP relieve themselves of this weight and focus more on playing conservatively? Because obviously more penalties means you're playing more aggressively.
Yeah, they had 145 yards of penalties last week. That has been a huge problem, especially the last 2 weeks. We saw again this past week that they had an illegal man downfield, and we saw on the sideline they were not happy whatsoever with that. It's about limiting those penalties. We saw a couple questionable calls, especially on the defensive side, but overall, I think that their offensive line needs to do a better job of watching where they are on the field, because they've had 4 or 5 penalties the last 2 weeks where they've had a lineman down the field when they didn't need to have a lineman down the field. So I think if they can limit those kind of penalties and the penalties that are just silly penalties really, then they can really succeed as a team. And I think that's another reason why they are struggling this season.
Exactly. Penalty is a huge important factor of the game, but we talked about positives, talked about negatives for the team, how they can improve and how they can, or what they can throw away. If they were to listen and improve upon all these mistakes, how likely is it that we see a strong playoff push by IUP? I know they look like a playoff contending team, but do you think they'll go as far as they did last year?
The way that this season's been playing out, I'm not sure about going that far. It's hard to repeat going to a national semifinal 2 consecutive years in a row. Only the most elite teams in Division II are able to do that. I don't know of any team currently looking down the rankings that could go to a semifinal. It's really a question mark at this point in the season. But IUP, I think they can make the playoffs. They have a strong chance at still making the playoffs as long as they win out. If they can show me within the next 4 or 6 weeks that they can win, and that they can win by a big amount and get this offense straightened up, I think that they have a strong chance at making a strong playoff push. And we saw last year, West Florida lost 4 games last year and still made it to a national championship. So anything is possible, but they need to get hot late on in the season. This is the time for that team to get heated and to win some football games and to have confidence going in to those playoffs.
Now, a lot of worthy contenders, and for our first edition of the Hawk Take, we're going to go with one question. Who is the early pick for IUP Football MVP, both for offense and for defense?
I think MVP for defense is pretty simple. I think DeAndre Easterling has been a stud for this defense. He has racked up an insane amount of sacks early on. I think he's averaging about 1 sack a game, but he has looked fantastic in all phases. Offensively is a little bit more problematic because there hasn't been a complete stud. Lenny Williams looked strong the first 5 weeks of the season, but then since just dropped off. There's not really anything that you could say. I think the true MVP of this team has been Kayshawn Carter. He is second in kick return average. He already had a touchdown this season, and he's really been the unsung hero for this team. He puts the offense in a great position. He gets them to just about the 40-yard line every single kickoff return. Only a freshman, so looking forward to the next several years. We're going to be losing Lenny Williams, of course, after this season, but he's really, I think, the next stud to come out of IUP.
I like that Hawk take. So yeah, Stephen Lane and Jake Slobodnik. Coverage starts on Saturday at 11:50 with the game starting at 12 o'clock. IUP versus Clarion. Stephen and I to call the action. Be there, be square.
What it do, what it does.
What it don't. I'm Nick Dodowski along with Jake Taylor for this inaugural Full Send weekday update. Trying something a little different, just like the Capitals tried something different last year and got past the second round. The Caps raised the banner Wednesday night in a 7-0 shutout over the Boston Bruins, only to proceed to choke against none other than the Pittsburgh Penguins the next night.
Well, staying on the subject of choking, Nick, the Atlanta Falcons still seem to have yet clear their throat of whatever got caught in the fourth quarter of Super Bowl 51. They're off to a 1-4 start, which is less of a disappointment than Julio Jones having 3 touchdowns in his last 21 games. It's pretty impressive. Not the fact that he's considered elite, but the fact that I averaged 0.14 less touchdowns than him in that same time frame.
Well, Jake, we surveyed 100 students on campus with the question, if you could be any athlete in the world, who would it be?
Now, there's a right and a wrong answer to this question, and it's clearly Lance Armstrong, because who wouldn't want to wheel for a living?
My answer would have to be a pro deck hockey player, because those guys are real sick.
Well, I'm going to have to deflect that comment and target all my emotional pain towards Travis Kelce, like I do so well. To catch these viewers up to speed, I've been DMing Travis for about 2 years straight, none with replies, but I know he'll tune into this show and read one I sent of January this year. Let me pull it up here, Nicholas. Do you even remember what winning feels like, considering you haven't done blank in the last 4 weeks? You think you're a good tight end, but I'd rather take Jesse James over your reality TV 0 rating butt. Go back to MTV because the end zone is not where you belong. First round elimination to Blake Bortles this year in the playoffs. You might as well request a trade to the Browns because they have the same chances of winning the Super Bowl as your trash team. Hashtag Yinzer Gang.
Well, Jake, I used to be DM buddies with Aaron Hernandez, but for some reason he stopped responding to me.
Something we don't touch a lot here often on the Big Hit is MLB. So here's the best shot at me trying to round up the latest Major League Baseball news. The Milwaukee Brewers swept the Colorado Rockies. I just can't. Nick, dude, wake up. Help me out.
I can't blame you, Jake. I tried to tune into the wild card game between the Yankees and the Oakland Athletics, but obviously chose to watch the Roval instead. Who am I kidding? I just sat there and rewatched the story of the 2009 Super Bowl champion Pittsburgh Steelers on America's game for the 264th day in a row.
A full cent gone wrong goes out to the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are dead last in AFC North despite having the most 2017 Pro Bowlers on their roster. And they just tied the Browns, which is almost as pathetic as my high school going 2-57, but I know both teams are watching this, so we're definitely going to have to change the subject.
At least no NFL teams actually lose to the Browns, right, Jake?
Yeah, Baltimore Ravens?
Eesh.
Yeah, that definitely makes my brain hurt, but not as bad as my brain hurts trying to pronounce these names Aaron Rodgers had to throw to this Sunday. Wideouts Marquise Valdez-Scantling and Equanimous St. Brown caught passes from Rodgers. According to Coach Mike McCarthy, the Packers are looking to add dynamic free agents Hingle McCringleberry and Snuffleupagus to the roster this week.
Well, Jake, I'm at least happy for both Marcus Von Blumpkin and Equestrian St. Bum. They got their first career catches, but the Packers have bigger concerns this week on the sideline as veteran kicker Mason Crosby missed 4 field goals and an extra point in their loss to the Detroit Lions. Teammate Clay Matthews stated in his post-game press conference that maybe Crosby should not be sneaking off and taking shots of scotch with Aaron Rodgers prior to the game. I can only imagine Crosby will perform if he hangs out with Josh Gordon prior to their Week 9 matchup with New England.
Yeah, that's a good point, Nick, but that's even if Josh Gordon makes it to Week 9 without getting suspended again. Another player that might not be on a roster much longer is interception back Eli Manning. As seen in their game with the Panthers this week, star receiver Odell Beckham Jr. can throw a ball better than Manning. After getting real fired up with his complaints about not getting enough action this week, Coach Pat Shermer has named OBJ the starting quarterback, right tackle, and equipment manager.
Speaking of absolute abominations, Khabib. That is all.
For those of you that live under a rock,
or for those of you that spent Saturday night at Kobe Bryant's hotel room,
Khabib Nurmagomedov defeated fellow full sender Conor McGregor in a boring fashion, wrestling him down with his notorious ground game. Khabib took McGregor's championship, but no way could he have taken the former champ's swagger.
After the fight is what really got people talking. Khabib brought out his inner Russian and went into an absolute frenzy. He hopped out of the cage and went to town on one of McGregor's boys.
Just like Adrian Peterson beat down
on the Packers at FedEx Field a few weeks ago. One of Khabib's men proceeded to jump the cage and assault McGregor from behind. Khabib had to say this quote about the incident: "Ya prosto za vishtani." For those of you that don't speak communist, it translates to, "I just sharted in my pants."
Exactly like Jason Garrett did the other night when he punted on 4-1 at midfield in overtime. And to make the matter worse, DeAndre Hopkins dropped dong on their defense anyways, costing Dallas the game.
Yeah, Jake, if I had the testicular fortitude of an infant owl, I'd punt the ball too, Jason Garrett. I mean, why hand the ball off to Ezekiel Elliott to keep the drive alive when you can go for a win on a punt? The Cowboys are in action again next Sunday against the Skyline High School football team.
Unfortunately for you, this full send wake up update is coming to an end, but that only means a nice beginning for us, yeah?
Hell yeah, it does, Jake. The shotgun policy here in the studio is not as lenient as it is back in 948 Wayne. Full send shotties only.
Thanks for listening and tuning into The Big Hit. I'm Jake Taylor on behalf of myself and Mr. Nicholas Daddy Dadowski. Thank you to the crew in the back, producers Mike Costa, Steve Langdon, and myself, and director Elliot Hicks. Sit down, shut up, and drink a beer. You gotta help me out with this one.
I can't blame you, Jake. I tried to tune into the wild card game between the Yankees and the Oakland Athletics, but obviously chose to watch the Roval instead. Who am I kidding? These guys just lost their